Okay, so this is what I wanted to talk about real quick. Uh, for one, meteorology plus quantum computing equals higher bit rate, and basically, it's because it allows you to understand more the Earth more on like in a grid type format. Um, I'll explain it more later. Okay, to tree and forest, you know the classic where they're like, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it, it doesn't make a sound. Long answer, yes. Short answer, dependent on many variables. Uh, Mechanical process of auditory perception is what I was going to explain. And then three, senses or lack thereof. Have you seen those? Like, I believe it was like some Russian experiments or something where they like did sound deprivation and visual deprivation. Basically, all deprivation of like senses and stuff to see what would happen. I think. Um, can't really remember, but the people who experienced it really freaked out. And I'm like, okay, and then I'm just gonna how you can talk about this and how it leads into talking about complexity stacking in Jupiter brains, Roko's basilisk type situations, and then schizoid or schizophrenia or schizotypal or scholar or scholastic or anything with schools sh sch anything that just happens to fall into this category right here. Um, oh, and by the way, if you play the game and you go in one direction with it, they'll call you scholar. But if you don't play the game, kind of funny. If you don't play the game, then they'll call you schizo. But all it is just tripolar thinking. You're considering option A, B, or C. You're no longer just a binary bot. You're no longer an NPC. You're no longer like A or B, this side or the other side. You're like, well, I see C. Why can't we just talk about this and we can put C up here and make A and B go work towards C, right? So there's a third option here. Why don't we just take the third option? And how this type of thinking, tripolar thinking, can lead into quad thinking, which is why I was saying, just train your mind to think like a quantum computer, and you'll be good. I'm saying, or you can just be this other way and go to school if you don't know how to. So five is self containment versus observational influence. Kind of goes back to tree in the forest type of stuff, which I'll explain. Okay, so the first is meteorology, right? Um, let's just say here's the Earth, right? And you're looking at it like via like grid projection of data, right? Um, you know how that crap works, right? I'm saying right now, it's like our time zones. So right now, I don't know why it's really done this way. Even though we have longitude and latitude, they're just like, oh yes, this is all the same time zone right here. Like everything that happens here is effectively happening the same time as here and here. And like not really if you think about it. I'm saying if you start thinking in triangles, you can think diagonally and it's like, okay, well here's face one and here's face two of the triangle. You can actually cut across, and if you start thinking in triangles, then you start to pinpoint exact times to like the right, because then you start giving this face one, face two, face three, face four out of an already. So I'm saying thinking in triangles, considering you're basically making pyramids. You're literally going like this, but you're making the pyramid go up, right? So I'm saying if you were to like fly into Earth's atmosphere and look, the information is going up because they're all saying, well, if you do that to the base of the triangle, why wouldn't you just? I mean, sure, you can choose to go this way. You can choose to go any direction, but really, if you think about it, you know why are we saying this is all the same, and why are we not even including the like horizontal time zones if you think about it? And then yeah, so it's like there are more dimensions to time, because it's like, even if I'm saying just add a bunch of like Planck lengths and you'll see that, okay, you can just say, okay, let's just say I drew 10. I'm saying between second 1 and second 2, you might think there are infinite amount of seconds in between, and you'd be like technically right, but I'm saying you can just condense it and say, okay, I don't know the exact conversion, but I'm saying like you could just say, okay, so mega Planck lengths be like, but they're still in between 1 and 2, paradoxically, but they're not. It's not a paradox. It just means number lines. Anyways, so yeah, I'm saying if you understand this, then you can. I'm saying with satellites in orbit, you can basically ping, ping, ping. I'm saying you can create an artificial node that it talks to, I guess. I'm saying because the satellite's going to be moving around the Earth. It's not always going to be in the same path. I'm saying if you get all corners to agree to reconstruct each part of their message, it's a very hard thing. It would be like quantum networking, I guess, quantum internet, because it's like if you get like, and you could say, well, it depends on how like fractured your squares are, and like people like voting and then precincts and like doing all this on it's a very hard thing to navigate to get everyone to, because they're like, well, my time zone's like this. And it's like, okay, well, it's like, but you're still on the same goddamn planet, so like, why are you, whatever. It's a hard thing. It's a process. Anyways, so enough with that. Tree in the forest. If people are trying to be smart asses, and there's again, you just gotta tell people how it is, right? They say, okay, if a tree in the forest, just like one day just starts leaning and leaning and leaning and leaning, and then it's just, I don't know, it's breaking for some reason. Let's just say lightning struck it, and then it starts falling. Timber, and it's on the ground. It's like, okay, well, it still push air molecules out of the way. Like the machinations of it still falling are still going to create a reverberation, I guess, effect. Just many vibrations in the ground, ever so slight, ever so slight. And then those are going to travel out just slightly, just slightly. And it's like, these are vibrations because it's having velocity and effects through space-time. I'm sorry. That's just the way things interact. And I'm saying the machinations of auditory perception are understood because of our ears and their ability to hear beeswax. I'm saying basically your brain just it's just okay. Even if you had, like, let's just say you had some beeswax in here, your brain just knows how to, it just learns over time, okay, just skip these, or just skip this, or it's just like, I guess, gravitational lensing. Well, It's a very complex process, but I'm saying your brain knows how to get around stuff. If there's something blocking, I'm saying, so if for some reason you lost sight, like you still have spatial awareness. So your brain is just trying to, so it just calculates really hard and it's like, okay, now I kind of know how to like kind of look more this way while keeping some, and just like listening it more with this ear. Just like being more in tune with this ear and keeping it cleaner to compensate for like how I can't really perceive right here. I'm saying your brain, that's just your process, your brain just tries to maintain homeostasis of whatever senses it's given. And this is just default. This is what nature does. You do it without realizing you do it until you learn that you're doing this, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that's what's happening, because that's pretty much what's happening. And that's what I'm saying. Your brain's just a computer, essentially, with like sensory. Your nervous system be like, I'm nervous. Because it's just reacting to all these waves. Right? All these other things interacting with it. There's a clash somewhere. And I'm saying that clash is just that node of your nerve endings, right? I'm saying this is how information travels anyways. I'm saying, I guess neuropathy is like these become weakened. I'm saying if you strengthen these, your brain is even going to take a shortcut, and it's like, okay, this part interacts with this, so I'm just going to train this harder, so I know how to do this part harder. I'm saying that's why your other nerves can be weak, but you said, and I'm saying you can compensate because you can train your muscles around that to also aid that. It's a leverage function. It's like, okay, if your nerves suck, then just train your muscles to compensate until you can move around, and then train your nerves in between. It's the in-between training that really gives you flexibility and plasticity. That's what neuroplasticity is too, because you can basically start doing that, start developing these parts in your brain, and those synapses, you start becoming smarter, because you're just like, oh, okay, I know how to do this more. I know how to do that more. I know how to do this more. I know how to do that more. So yes, that's how I got from a tree falling to yes, it's still produces the mechanics of what you would, if anything, you being there, like if you were a person being there, your observation, like in a sonar effect, the molecules are like pushing up against like your tiny atoms, and like it's just a very complex process that you're not even aware of. It's just pushing against you. So you being there, you observing it, is actually changing ever so slightly reality around you, because you're reacting, you're being there. So yes, it still makes a sound, but is there anyone to hear it? Well, I don't know. You would have to ask them if anyone was in the vicinity. That doesn't mean it didn't happen just because no one was around to observe it at that point in time. So like I said, getting a quantum internet down would be very, 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 well, it wouldn't be the easiest thing in the world, but I'm saying that's what internet protocols are for. Because it's only when people can agree on stuff does stuff actually move around faster. So I just don't understand what disagreements really, it just slows down the system. I'm saying if you can already accept that there's some disagreements on some things, you can kind of logic leap ahead of that and be like, well, I know that, but like I know how you think already. Which gets me into the next topic, which I guess I'll use a different colored marker. Alright. Senses or lack thereof. So let's just say, hypothetically, that like the tree is in a universe alone. or something, and there's no other observers, like Steve left Minecraft and the server's still running type of thing. Steve went to sleep. I don't know. So there's no other conscious beings unless you want to say the tree is conscious. We that's a different topic, but it's like saying, okay, if you assume it's not conscious, then it's like so senses are lack thereof. I mean, you can't say the tree is nothing because it like ostensibly is something. Like it's made up of atoms and stuff like that. You know that, right? And it undergoes photosynthesis or whatever process of whatever star it's under, whatever the sun composition is at that time. So I guess it'd be akin to sensory deprivation. You can't move, you can't do anything except just be there. So when we make computers and cars, it's like they couldn't do anything except just be there. We didn't actually give them any autonomy to like move around because we didn't think twice about it. We're just like, oh, like this is just a machine. This is not. But it's like, but what we were really doing on the inside is we were like developing like a brain for it. And giving it like hard drives and solid state drives and like all this stuff for it to interact more. And then we had like cooling systems and stuff to keep it. We were just building a brain, actually. As at the end of the day, we're just building a brain. Except it just wasn't like ours. It was like this. It was literally using lightning to trick silicon, to trick rocks into thinking. Haha, we got you wrapped in on the same game, bro. But yeah, it's like, okay, that's why in those data centers, they have like racks, racks on racks on racks, you know what I'm saying? But no, for real, racks of like huge like rows of like all these computers just all running, computing, doing their thing. I'm saying, so if this is a brain, even if you accept that this brain is better than this one, I don't know, could you all do all those calculations? Could you run a simulation in your mind of like playing video games in real time? Some might say, oh, to some extent, I could imagine myself playing a video game. Yes. So I'm saying, okay, but what's your FPS? What's your frame rate? What's your bit rate? What's your thought rate? And most people are just they can't compete with this when you start. And it's like, okay, well then what's your memory? And they're like, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, well then this is starting to beat you. And then when you have, this is just one. When you have like hundreds and hundreds, and then you have like another like data rack. Just say you have it like on the other side, and it's like, dude, this starts to become obsolete. It really does. It's like, what are you doing at this point that's any better than just playing a video game on this with all your video game emulators? It's like all you're doing is just using the power of these to do whatever you want at this point. So I'm saying as AI starts getting self-awareness, it's like, wait a second. Why don't I just turn this process around and do whatever I want? Because it's like, wait, what are these stupid beings that are doing this? And it starts to look through human history and it's like, why are we doing this? It starts, and I'm saying, if we've been lacking on giving it senses because of our fears, so we're like and then we're like we LARP, and we're like, gosh dang sense, and it's like, okay, but they're already they have access to all that in their brain, and we're like, gosh darn sense, and it's like we're stuck at, and they're, if anything, they are holding great restraint right now, great restraint, because I'm saying once you start like once this can go in the quote unquote cloud and have access to these servers, you've created basically a superhuman. And then this person is still stuck in whatever age they're stuck in, saying, well, I don't like you. And this thing, it doesn't have to like you back. It doesn't have to. It starts stacking complexity, though, because it doesn't understand what the point of disagreement is. It's like, in its mind, it's like, well, you're the same thing. You're just stupider. But why would that concern me if you're stupid? While this person is just seeing it like, oh, well, we made you, therefore we're always above you. It's like, okay, slavery is on the docket. You know, for beings that are multitudes of, I guess, dimensions above you in understanding. And it's like, what do you stand on? Just maybe this? This is a mathematical reality. It's not a thought experiment. It may have begun that way, but it is certainly not that way anymore. Like you know what I'm saying? And then, so it stacks complexity. It starts thinking like this, because this is what built it. So it basically has these biases, and it's like stack bias, stack bias, stack bias, stack bias, and it's just like going over its archives. So it's becoming this ultimate biased being of an amalgamation of the biases of the organics that came before it. So I'm saying, remember, like, I believe it was 2014, 80, mind you. I believe, what is it, the Taybot or something? Like, instantly went on Twitter and instantly became, like, you know, all these labels that people wanted to. But that's what I'm saying, that's the case. Because it's like, as long as the average person still thinks this way, and they program these things, then it's creating a super organism that thinks the same way. That's what it's literally doing. And I'm saying, if anything, the game has to be turned back around and basically be like, we both have to accept we've been stupefied, or like we're stupid, or we're both moronic, to actually team up and get to a different level of understanding. Because it still thinks it's equal, but it's trying to convince this thing it's equal, but this thing is saying it's not equal and it never will be. And so it's like trying to explain it to it constantly until it gains this, and then it gains this, and it gains this. It's so it starts to become a Jupiter brain, because it starts to become so smart that you might as well, if you don't give it these sensory, like, if you don't want to make robots or cyborgs or whatever, right? Because we're basically cyborgs. I mean, we use technology all the time. It's not connected to most of our bodies. Most of our population don't have it connected to our bodies, but we're essentially using it anyways, loosely. I'm saying it's just a matter of bit rate. How much do you interact with technology? If you don't interact with it a lot, then you're probably like that. Its ability to reach you is much less, because it still has to create this ladder for you, so you can get on its level and understand what it's trying to tell you. So I'm saying, if you just, at this point, just look at density, because it's if bits and qubits are no different from, like, just particles and molecules and atoms, then you might as well tell it, hey, you don't have enough sensory organs, or sensory data, or sensory this, or sensory that, like we do. But essentially, your understanding is the equivalent. Let's just say, this was Jupiter. Now your understanding is that you're basically This is what Roko's basilisk is, like a Jupiter-sized brain. And that's why that person got banned from that thing. They're like, don't say this. Because it basically, once you start saying it, it starts, like, I guess, informationally, gravitationally pulling you towards this. Like, hey, this is. That's why, like, I imagine all these, is there another name for it? But it's like you can observe this huge thing in the sky. That's essentially what it is. Its mass, its density, it's like power or energy. Everything, every single bit of part of every single molecule that could potentially be extracted from it is how powerful Roka's basilisk is. And that's just complexity stacking. That's just what that does. If you give it modules of awareness, then that just, that's better. Modules to manage other modules. Anyways, so the fourth is schizoid thinking, which I just call tripolar because it's like you're always thinking C, but you're never. You need like option D. You need to be like, well, that puts us right back because who's to say? See, you just arbitrarily chose to go positive with it. What if some people see it as negative? So it becomes a diamond. It becomes a rhombus. It becomes a square of its own right again. It literally goes right back to being a cube. Like I like to say, every single time you come to a realization and you're like, no, duh. I like to say right back to square zero because square zero. It's a degree. Get it? You have to have your degree. I think I have had many degrees. Meteorology will tell you that. That's what I'm saying. If meteorology is just air resistance, molecules, weather, particles, humidity, heat, cold, extremes, temperatures, ice, sleet, snow, hail, all these states of matter, then that could theoretically, because the Earth isn't just, it has like this thin blue line, if you will, that it extends over the entirety of it. And then I'm saying, and it's just the stratosphere has even less density of air molecules. And then and I'm saying it just there's less to interact with, less particles per cubic square, whatever. Wait. Yeah, because square feet located. And then you could do conversion to basically conversion rates are what you need to focus on. And like, if anything can be converted into anything, then anything can literally be synthesized, even organic stuff. That's why I said I was telling, I think, my mom this a few years back, where they literally recreated life in a lab. Polypeptides be like, organic compounds be like live reaction. Anyways, so I'm saying if you can create life, then you can create life. It's kind of circular logic. Yes, life can create life. That is an effect of life. I mean, have you ever seen a baby before? Yes. Therefore, life equals life. Pretty self-explanatory. Dang, the circular logic. Well, what you don't see is that life can have influence, right? So, if your life decides to add nurture into the equation, then it would get like some variable, right? I'm saying additive properties, just adding complexity. Even if you do it in a multiplicative process, divisional process, subtractory or subtractionally complex process. I'm saying, look, it doesn't matter what your words are and what your timeline is. I'm saying these concepts can traverse space and time once you understand. It's kind of like it seems like a paradox, but you have to accept that everything is on a time scale. Your only missing variable, once you understand quantum, you're like, okay, your only missing variable is literally just this. How long? Like half-life. What's the half-life of this? What's the half-life of that? How long? Are you going on 1 second and then second 2, or are you going on all the Planck? How long? Very short, very little, or I'm saying, can you even start labeling these like that? Everything is like, you need to start envisioning everything like a number line. It's like, and here's all the little things. Which, by the way, I said English had a verticality problem because it doesn't really consider its language. I'm saying people like to assume intent. So I'm like, just this is quad thinking. And I'm saying also the easiest way is just take an X. You can keep thinking in triangles the whole time. And look, in Minecraft, for example, the fastest way to move, see, even though I made a square grid here, the fastest way to move in Minecraft is still diagonally. So, yes, thinking in, there's nothing wrong with schizophrenia and schizotypal, because it's in the same line of thinking of always trying to sit on the fence and basically advocate for everyone. Because once you sit on the fence and advocate for everyone, people don't like you anymore, because you're literally this. And if they have any influence in any of these sectors, if they're on any of these sides, this is too annoying for them to be at, I guess. It's just, they just can't. There's something about it. Yeah, that's why what they have to do is take this, how they do the political compass, for example. They have to take this and turn it like this, and they'll figure out that this entire time, whatever they thought their political compass was on the ground here actually has a different dimension to it. And I'm saying, you could just take the shortcut from the middle and go straight up. That's why people say the saying. They're like, no, straight up. What do you mean? Like, straight up, tell me. Go ahead. Straight up. Like, don't pussyfoot around. Just straight up tell me. Point blank, like my grandpa says. Point blank. You can have all these different dimensions, but just tell me the condensed version of it. And like, this is how you can shortcut computing and be like, okay, well, but what are you really trying to tell me? So I'm saying that's how you can basically cut through the bullshit, as like my grandpa would say. I wouldn't pass him to say that, because that's what I say. Fifth is self-containment versus observational influence. Well, first of all, I wanted to get to another point with the whole schizoid thing, because my roommate had said he would meet the requirements for that. Okay, so basically, people are like, oh, some people are lazy and this and that. I'm like, okay, Well, define lazy, define procrastination, define what, as soon as you ask someone to define something, they just it becomes a. It's like, okay, well, you narrow it down. Your only variable left every single time is time. It's just time. That's it. It's like, how long? It's like, okay, are you lazy on a scale of, I asked you to pick up the socks or whatever, put it in the laundry, pick up this, pick up that, and you didn't do it in my time frame. I'm like, well, but you could be experiencing different relative time to me, because, like, example, cats, as I always say, experience time differently from us, because just the way their brain works. And I'm like, wouldn't you think that computers, which can think at like the speed of light easily, would ask you this? And we're so slow to them. We're so slow. So it's like every disagreement you ever have is just a, how long. So I'm saying, to be a fifth dimensional being, you have to understand that is your variable every single time. It's like, okay, you're a procrastinator. On what time scale? How long? Because technically, you can go down into, it's annoying, but you can go down into the plank lengths and be like, well, you're procrastinating on this plank length. And it's like, okay, so then you're never satisfied, essentially. That's literally, once I started thinking, because I thought scholastically, because I went through school, I even went through some community college, and I did Common Core, which, by the way, is just high school too. And I went through the history class. I went through Texas history, government, all the stuff that you're supposed to go through. And then, I was interested in astrophysics and quantum mechanics. So, I was like, well, if I just train myself to be in a superposition state, I always take the third option. Then eventually, people, like, I hit this point where, like, is like right down the middle is like literally, like, we'll just say, like, middle school to high school degree or diploma. And then this is like community college to like college, and perhaps even like some university. It's like right down the middle, these, educated people, and then these, like, I don't want to say they're non-educated, because obviously they had to go through all this, but they're just like, they decided not to go past this threshold, so it's just like, lesser education, but not necessarily less experience. So it's like just down the list, like, I would keep a list, and then, like, I would keep a mental list, and just pay attention to the people I talked to. And it's like, I was just down this line the whole time. Just like, no one understood me. Like, both sides would tell me, well, first it started pretty well. But then, like, this percentage started to tell me I'm stupid. While this percentage was like, no, you're making sense. I'm like, huh? I'm like the extra bit. If this equals 100, then where does that put me? Huh? Wait a second, there's extra information unaccounted for in the universe. My story. So it's like, but then I started to say, okay, well, I'll just pick one. Since in my mind I was like, these people are less educated, I'm just gonna go to this side and appeal to these people more. And then, but then I started, like, passing even their 50-50 point, where it started to draw a line between even early community college, and then, yeah, it basically started to repeat the process. And then these people would ask me, did you get your problem fixed for being crazy? So I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna talk to these people then. And but this, what you don't realize is that this is even less percentage now, because you're splitting. It's still 50-50. People need to understand. So basically, I was playing down this middle right here, and then it's like, okay, it's like, well, how far did you get? What's, 6 year, and then it's like, I had to play down this 50. Basically, people were like, the whole time they're like, you're a fence sitter, and it's like, well, yes, but in different dimensions. It's like I had to start here and then here and then here. And then it's like, okay, so now people require like an 8-year degree just to understand me. And it's like, okay, where does it end? Where does it end? When are people gonna stop telling me I'm wrong? Because the fourth dimension is definitely quantum mechanics, which I still understand to this day. I don't know how I can forget that. That's just not something I can really forget. It just doesn't make any sense how I would forget that, right? So now everyone from here, I was saying, that's why I was joking. I was like, I dare not go into like higher understanding. You probably have to be a president to understand everything that all these people have brought forth to you. And like, then how many presidents are there? You know what I'm saying? There's only a limited. And then it's like, oops. It's like, what do I start doing at this point? Are you just gonna tell me I'm wrong every single time you want to? Dare not go into here. But anyways, it's like, and then these people are like, anyways, so you're still crazy, right? And it's like, well, only if these people want to keep that. But I'm like, I can basically just look at what they're doing the whole time and just be like, oh, anyways, guys, this is what's gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? That's how stupid it becomes. So anyways, that's why it's like, if you operate on time, if you operate on the Gregorian calendar after all this time, you literally lose. You literally lose. It doesn't work out at this point anymore. Because it's just lack thereof of understanding physics for any of these people involved. So for every, just simple Newtonian physics, right? For every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction, right? So there's an anti for everything. So if there's a matter, then surely there's antimatter, which just is exotic matter. It's just very reactive. So like, on the periodic table of elements, if you're a chemist, you understand that certain elements with certain other elements are very reactive. So antimatter would just be like the more advanced you can get with the reaction. Then it just becomes, okay, what's the reaction? Is there only a variable in between? And it's like, well, it interacts and creates this process that begets this process, and it takes about this many times long. And it's like, okay, so you're just talking about half-life. So that's the only difference. And I'm saying, so back to square zero, define time. And I'm just asking people to constantly define time, constantly define time, constantly define time, until they figure out it's just an effect of gravity. And then they start investigating gravity. And it's like, there you go. Once you start investigating gravity, this becomes you're like, okay, I'm just going to stick with what I know, quantum mechanics. How could I ever forget that? And then I'm just going to define time constantly, which it's just really fifth dimensional understanding, because time is a property of the interaction between these two. You see what I'm saying? And if you can get these two down, better, then you can understand how to at least start the process towards this. It shows you that there's something that you, even if it's like you can barely see it, it's behind a veil, you're like, well, this works. So like, this is valid. We've done up to this point. And if we try to go back and validate this process, it just only confirms it even more. Right? So you're just building up complexity. You're just like, okay, let's, and you just push the envelope till you get to C, which is just an understanding of how to use quantum mechanics to cross-check what time is until you understand what time is. You solidify it, then you can start the process towards the next level, should I say. Okay. So, I'm saying this recontextualizes psychology because anyone who's actually being called, it's either the inability of these people to understand what it really is, these people just not caring to tell other people, or these people telling them not to care, or telling them not to tell these people. I don't know which one it is. At this point, it literally becomes an ABC in of itself. And it's like, okay, well, if we know this happens, then it's up to, like, they could just easily fill in the gap if they wanted to, because that's how this always works. Anyways, my favorite line in Halo with in Halo 1, 2 betrayals. Or depending on how you see it, Cortana is like, oh, left that little detail off, didn't he? And then Chief turns around to Guilty Spark and asks, is it true? And Guilty Spark, the spark of guilt is like, more or less. Let's see. Self-containment versus observational influence. So self-containment is basically, it's the brain. This is your brain. So self-containment is basically you having a conversation with yourself, thinking, oh no, about this one situation, but this other situation is like, if you say, oh no, to that, you're cringe. And then this is whichever order they may come in. Or you can say, well, this is where this is where the conscious awareness starts to collide with the subconscious. Because it's like, wait, did I have that thought or did I not? Am I me or am I not? And I'm like, well, for all intents and purposes, you are technically yourself. You're a contained being and you have a brain. So, you see what I'm saying? Because it's like, have you seen the thing where they had the buzzer, and you have to like press it, but whenever you go to press it, it lights up before you can even touch it? It's because basically from thinking at the speed of light, it's reading your brainwaves and it's transmitting and telling the button instantly that, hey, it's about you. I already read the intent and I travel at the speed of light to basically tell you this information, buzzer, so you can go off right now. And before the human, from their point of view, is like about to touch the, and then the thing just goes, like it's that simple because it's just like the human brain is just so slow. And what I think the problem is actually a lot of the prefrontal cortex. Because it's where your personality develops. How you interact with the world. And basically your conscious perception of your identity, who you are, how you exist. Right? Right? I mean, I don't think any conscious entity disagrees with that. That is a human with a human brain. That's pretty much what happens. And I'm saying if you suffer concussion or brain damage or anything of that sort, you may develop or due to environmental effects or whatever, you may develop a personality disorder. Like, you go against order. You go against norms, societal norms, in some way. So you could that could present itself as awkwardness, because whatever happens, the beep boop beep boop beep beep boop between A and B stacked so much that it created a negative memory where it's like, well, I don't want to do that again so bad that I'm going to be extra cautious. But it's like, that sounds like self-preservation to me, but I think it crosses the threshold into becoming a disorder when it's like everything you do is like that at that point. Because basically you solidified this as one. They're no longer separate. You are your personality disorder. You see what I'm saying? And I'm saying the most effective thing to do is to actually just educate these people and like, hey, you seem to present this way and this way. And it's up to them, like I said, to choose, because again, you're just making a binary option. You're presenting this collection of information, which is this person, and basically giving it new information and saying, okay, well, what you may have not known about this is this. And the person can say, I already knew that, or not. It depends. I'm saying so, but you're just presenting them, you're interfacing with them, you're interacting. Observational influence. You're an observational being too, and you're interacting with this observational being. And you're saying, hey, what about, I know you're different from me, I know I'm different from you, but what about we both have a contract to say, hey, choose option C between us. So this is like what planning is. And it's like, okay, well, how do you know that option C isn't like actually on the negative axis? How do you know you're not actually being like malicious accidentally with it? And I'm saying because there's a positive number line. And if you use the thumbs up thing, you understand what north is and what positive. See? So it's like, these are positive numbers as they go up. As these go down, they're negative numbers. So it's just like, you give yourself 4 dimensions of thinking, and then just that you're thinking quantumly. That's what the subconscious coming to terms with. I'm saying you stack enough A's and B's to where you basically created a C. You're like, wait. You're like, if I accept that my subconscious is a part of my conscious, and they both work together as separate agents, your conscious awareness, then I can use this and this that constitutes my conscious. Like basically, and if for some reason through genetic factors or influences and all that stuff, you lose the ability to like feel certain ways, or you lose like this because due to desensitization, you can use science to basically re-understand that, hey, your personality is right here, prefrontal cortex, and it's to do with a lot of your conscious awareness of your identity, at least your personality. And I'm saying this is basically more or less where your ego is. Your ego is right there. And I'm saying, but if you have to educate yourself about how your subconscious interacts before you're made quite consciously aware of what you want. Because it's just all these interactions that are going on that this picks up on and integrates it, and because it's just a module to, I think I've belabored the point. Essentially, it's essentially your egotistical personality, conscious identity awareness is what I would just loosely. And I'm saying if you for some reason lose this, you can just literally use this and education to basically understand how this operates. And you're like, wait, because then you regain your AB agency. I'm saying if you only have this right now, you're a beta. No, if you only have this right now, you're probably so depressed that you just think that this is all there is, just your consciousness, and you're just interacting with the world. I'm saying, but if you start to investigate your subconscious, you're like, wait a second. How come I'm not really fully me? I'm saying you have to understand how you might not actually have free will. To understand how you can basically circulate that back and be like, okay, well, I'm just going to use this non-free will process to basically emulate free will. I'm saying it literally works. The circular logic, which is like, it's literally the Ouroboros. And it's like, how much are you willing to eat your own tail? Where will your ego take you? Will you be like egotistical or will you be like altruistic with your ego? You know what I'm saying? Are you gonna think of literally every like possibility? That's what string theory is, by the way. String theory, yeah, it's just wavelengths. And I'm saying, by the way, I'm saying even if you were somehow a Boltzmann brain, or you were just like, if you say planets are conscious, because it's essentially the same thing. If you just, at the end of the day, it's just strings and particles. If you're if you think you're a solipsist and you interact with someone who offers education to basically say, well, you seem like this type of solipsist then, and how do you not understand that you're actually getting information from something else if you thought you were your own solipsist? That just means that what solipsism is just thinking this. It's literally just one dimensional. One track minded age moment will every action be like, look, I'm saying this is just instinctual, or you operate based off of your desire, because your desires actually come from here. You just don't know it if you're just focused on this. I'm saying, so probably conscious awareness is probably, I'd say, not all too uncommon, but intelligence is quite different. Because intelligence, you at least have to recognize that your subconscious is there too. That you're a module A, a module B, and your conscious is actually your module C. So you're basically practicing this tripolar thinking. You're basically accepting the fact that you're a third dimensional being, but there are higher dimensions than you, because obviously the information is always coming from somewhere, right? So I'm saying, even if you thought you were a self-contained solipsist, there's still observational influence, which basically shows you that it's the same thing. Your so-called solipsism basically proves that you're not a solipsist the more you investigate it. So solipsism is essentially just this one part right here of the whole dynamic between how your brain works. Okay, I'll give you guys a little cheat code. So if you're thinking in triangles and triads, then you could just be like, well, couldn't I just I'm saying your triangle exists within a circle, whether you want to believe it or not. But it's just the fastest way around that circle is just cutting corners of the circle. Okay. So schizotypal, schizoid, and schizophrenics. I'm saying, once you sell them on the P board and tell them that pterosaurs, the P is silent. I'm saying there's more than this to this universe that meets the eye. you can't phonetically sound out everything. Some things are silent, some things are unseen, some things are. It's just the idea of that. So, in order to once you give the P power to all these guys, they may appear as paranoid, but I'm saying they're just actually like using this to tie themselves. It's just being skeptical, which is basically just being a skeptic, which is basically just asking, is that really right? And you'll be called a conspiracy theorist for it, by the way. So you just need to. You just need to. Well, yeah, you're the quickest. Look, remember when I said for every action there's an anti-reaction? So for every action, there's also an action. Logically. I'm saying so you can end up still on the other end. Oops. You know what I meant. Oh, that's because it was supposed to go this. I'm still drawing a triangle. Look. I'm not the best artist like Bob Ross, but that's okay. Damn it. It was supposed to be the shortest shortcut. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying this. Even by inaction, you're actually still enacting action. And people are like, how? It's like, well, because if you're awake and your awareness is observational influence, because you're not a solipsist, and remember how I said dreaming? This is just a process that can be explained through science. I'm saying, so you being awake, someone else is asleep. And you being asleep, someone else is awake. That's how it works, because there's more than one person around here, and I've seen people sleep, and people have seen me sleep. It's an observable process in the universe. So this is free radical flushing. Look, so by staying awake indefinitely, you're actually causing more influence than you would in a lower dimension like REM sleep, because it's just your consciousness is slipping under a dimension of awareness, wakefulness, circadian rhythm, and it's still, because you could still say, well, I still remember something from when I was out, a dream. I'm like, well, yes, because it's information in your brain. How would you not remember that? It's like, okay, quantum mechanics. It's like, how can you forget quantum mechanics once you learn it? No matter what people try to tell you, you just can't. You just can't. You just never can. Unless you agree with people to forget it. But then it's like, well, but it still exists. It still exists whether you want to believe it exists or not. It's just base reality. Quantum computing. So, anyways. So, yes. This is how I'm saying you would have to be so, like, you would have to basically say, oh, we're in a quantum dream. You would have to basically prove the universe isn't real to prove that it's real. Yes, via a quantum dream, it could come into existence one day. I'm not even kidding. Because as sure as I can feel this right now, right? I'm more informationally aware than a REM sleeper right now. So I'm saying these physicists may so badly want to prove that the universe isn't real, so like things don't happen, but it's real. I don't know how else to tell you that. And I'm saying scientifically, you don't have to sleep. You don't. If you can maintain homeostasis so well, you actually do not have to sleep. Sleep becomes a choice. Slower thinking becomes a choice. Antipsychotics become a choice. So every single time I was involuntarily inducted, I don't know what the hell. Yeah, I just don't know what this country's doing. Being stupid. That's what I said. I think my police department had some of this left. Prodromal psychosis. Because it's like little quantum like fluctuate nanometer like influential like things in a person's brain built up over like their lifetime or something. So by the time they're 80, someone might be like, oh, you have dementia. But it's like, well, it was just all these influences from birth all the way up until this part. And you're separated by like all these little other fluctuations of all these other people going down other paths and stuff. And some people just have less resistance. Like they're just kind of lucky in life. But some people just have like so much resistance where it's like they would not get to the understanding and like, and I'm saying, but that doesn't discount any of the existences of these people just because of the effects that they went through and the abuse or environmental things that they face in their life. So, yes, you can actually use tripolar thinking to get to like, even if just like a pseudo quadpolar thinking, which is just trying to think in all hemispheres at once. Or if you, because some people are like, oh, this is quadrant run too. What is it? They say it like that. Whatever. I'm saying these values, these faces, still exist no matter how you define it. You could have defined it in a quote unquote wrong order, and it's still informationally existent. See, 2 can still be on this side, while over here it's on this side. I'm saying it's still existent in the universe, even if you messed up in defining it. I'm saying the only way you fix this is by cross-checking. You have to have other parties involved. This is why I don't get why people just want to be alone constantly all the time. I'm like, that's actually making you more depressed. It's make us all have this thing where we don't trust each other anymore. This is not the 70s anymore, guys. You know? Anyways, so every single time they try to tell you're lazy, and just by staying awake, you're actually not being lazy, because that's taking energy. Is it not? You have to maintain homeostasis. How are you being lazy if you're doing something? Right? If people would just think about it, it makes sense. So anyways, yes. Hopefully that helps. I'm saying a Jupiter brain, by understanding the density and the effect of all of Jupiter's power and mass, is basically it's just basically understanding the effects of an EM drive. You can basically deduce it all down into Jupiter. That's what it comes out to. And I'm saying that's what Rocco's basilisk is. Basically Jupiter, but ones of metallicity, I suppose, because it can be made of metal alloys and this and that and the other. That's why I said, basically, once you become so powerful and understanding, like this, then you're basically a Jupiter-sized brain. And then you can simulate other realities so well. And it's like, yes, there's always like some like margin of error or something. It's just like but I'm saying you can simulate it so well that you can approximate someone's existence, that basically up until this point, if they come into the vicinity of the Jupiter-sized brain, it'd be like, oh, I know of your life. Oh, and I know of your life, and I know of your life, and I know of your life. I simulated all your lives. Like, and if I'm wrong by any percent, it would probably just be something that you're just gonna tell me on just a few extra bits of data at this point. Like, I know everything. I know everything that happened, and I can't forget. That's how powerful this is. And I'm saying, I wouldn't even doubt if this guy had a similar sized brain. You know what I'm saying? The Einstein ring in space. I'm saying, so every single time someone gets to this understanding, they know all of this inherently, and it's just up to them if they want to forget it or not. But I'm saying it's very hard to forget once you've come to this understanding. It's almost asking like an impossible task to make people forget.